So maybe commissioners, you might want to do the same if you don't
Yeah.
want to go out and drive. It's up to you.
No, I really don't. I'm surprised that they would do it.
Yeah.
I do have Emily Lieb, the Metro Housing Policy Director, in the attendees list. I'm still waiting on Councilor Lewis and their housing director to join us.
Okay.
And Emily, apologies if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, Emily Lieb, not Emily.
Kepler, yeah.
Hey, Martha, your cats are barking.
Can you hear them?
Oh, we can hear them very clearly. In fact, the coyotes out here don't make that much noise.
Oh, I know. We have coyotes in our neighborhood. Here.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Little dog could be a real nugget one day. She's out at the wrong time. Although I pity the coyote that tried to tangle with her.
Yeah.
She'd go down with a fight. All right, let me try muting.
Okay. Do we know if Paul and Ben have power? I talked to Ben this morning. He's okay on power. They never lost it.
Ben connected earlier. I'm expecting him back here in a few minutes. I have not heard anything from Paul yet.
Commissioner Savas has power, so he's okay.
Good.
Oh, it is.
For the Business Alliance event, it is still on for now, but they will make a decision early afternoon if they're going to cancel it.
Oh, they are?
Yeah,
All
they
right.
haven't made the decision yet, but they will review after early afternoon.
I
I don't see how this all melts by 4, but we'll see. And thank you to Caroline for the assist.
And I do have Councilor Lewis in the attendees list.
okay, good.
Chair, would you like to bring her in now? Is that okay?
Chair, just before we get started, I'll need to start our recording.
Okay. What time is it?
It is currently 9:59.
Hello, Commissioner West, are you there?
I am, Chair. I'm here.
Commissioner Savas, you're here, correct?
Indeed.
Good. So Tony, I need to indicate for you to start recording and then I need to pause just for a second.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to turn my camera off, but I am still here.
Okay.
Looks like I do have everyone I was expecting for Metro.
Good.
We are ready when you are, Chair Smith.
Okay, Tony, would you start recording, please?
It is started, Chair.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Clackamas County Commission's policy session on this January 17, 2024. We are doing this virtually on Zoom because of the icy road conditions. All commissioners are present. We're going to continue to try to conduct our business. We do have guests coming in. Gary, would you please take the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner West.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here,
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here, go ahead, Gary. Introduce the first item, please.
Thank you. The first policy session today is Metro Affordable Housing Bond Update. We have two guests from Metro. Tony, if you would please bring them in the room. I will tee this off. So this was a request from Metro to give an update to the Board of Commissioners on the Metro Affordable Housing Bond approved by the voters of the Tri-County region, Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties in 2018. So today's purpose is to provide an overview of the projects throughout the region and in Clackamas County specifically, and outline the achievements toward the goals of this program. We are grateful to have with us today Metro Councilor Christine Lewis and Metro Housing Director Patricia Rojas. So thank you both for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you, Christine, Councilor Lewis, for the presentation, and then I'm happy to help you after that. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Chair, for having us here today. Good to see you. Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I wish we were in your building, but we're all safe in having this conversation, so I'll take what I can get. For the record, my name is Christine Lewis, and I have the privilege of serving as Metro Council District 2. And I am here today because I represent the most of Clackamas that's in Metro, though I have colleagues who do represent Clackamas as well on our board. We're grateful for your partnership and continued efforts to provide individuals and families in Clackamas County with a safe and affordable place to call home. And we're excited to share our latest findings with the Housing Bond Program. And it's all good news. In 2018, voters approved a region-wide housing bond to support 4,000 permanently affordable homes with the goal of advancing racial equity, reserving homes for very low income folks, and building half the homes that are family size. So that means 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, big enough to accommodate families in those buildings in every corner of our region. 5 years later, we're happy to report that the Metro Housing Bond is finding success and exceeding many of its original goals. In December, we celebrated the important milestone of over 1,000 new homes having been built and in operation, and more than 4,500 are in production thanks to this measure. That 1,000th home was opened in Happy Valley, right here in Clackamas County with the Good Shepherd Village, where I saw many of you celebrating. It's something we can be proud of. Clackamas County is really nailing it. With 10 different Metro projects in the production pipeline, Clackamas County has 970 units underway so far, exceeding the original goal of 812. 414 of those units are for individuals and families at or below the 30% area median family income. And those affordable units far exceed the 30% production goal of 333. And then we have 562 Clackamas units that are family sized, and that beats our 406 family size unit goal. Clackamas County has met and exceeded all of the metro unit production goals. We know voters across our region care about affordable housing. We all hear it, and the statistics of what we need to do in terms of unit production statewide, countywide, and metro-wide all bear out the continued need for this work. I'm proud of the work that we've been doing in partnership and collaboration to accomplish our regional goals. I'd like to hand it off to Patricia, who is our Metro Housing Director, to walk us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councilor Lewis. Good morning, and thank you all for making time for us to provide you this update on this winter and very icy day. And before I get going, I just wanted to say thank you to all of
Is that their link, Tony?
Hello. Sorry, I wanted to say thank you for all the Clackamas County staff and nonprofit partners who've been working around the clock to keep people safe and warm. My name is Patricia Rojas. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Regional Housing Director for Metro. And it is an honor to be here today to present this update on the Metro Affordable Housing Bond progress up to date. As Councilor Lewis mentioned, in 2018, voters passed a historic housing bond that's on track to create nearly 4,000 permanent affordable homes throughout our region. And while we know we have a lot more work to do, we are happy to report that we're projecting to exceed our goals by more than 700 affordable homes throughout the region. With your partnership, leadership, and vision, we're on our way to creating a community where thousands will have access to safe, stable, affordable homes. We're doing this together because we can accomplish more for our community than any one of us could have accomplished alone. In just 5 short years, we've built a remarkable partnership and infrastructure that will create safe, stable housing for thousands of Oregonians in the metro region for generations to come. And we couldn't do this without the support of leaders like yourselves and our partners throughout Clackamas County. We're proud and grateful to do this work with you. Next slide, please.
We haven't shown the slides yet, so Tony, would you please share the screen for the slides? Sorry, thank you.
It's okay. I'll hold.
Pulling that up now. Hold on just a moment.
Sure, no problem. Thanks. And we can go to the next slide, please. Thanks to the Affordable Housing Bond, new affordable homes are opening or under construction across the entire region. 51 projects are in the pipeline, including 18 that are under construction and 14 that are opening and accepting new residents. Metro delivers the Housing Bond program in close partnership with 7 local implementation partners, the cities of Hillsborough, Beaverton, Gresham, and Portland, Clackamas and Washington counties, and Home Forward as the implementation partner for East Multnomah County. Jurisdictions are responsible for administering funds that are invested in property acquisition and eligible development projects. Some projects are being developed and operated by housing authorities, but the majority are developed and operated through public-private partnerships. Across the region, bond-funded projects have involved hundreds of partners, from government and nonprofits to the business sector, including developers, architects, construction contractors, property managers, resident service providers, providers of wraparound services, and culturally specific organizations. Next slide, please. Metro convened community stakeholders to create the framework that now guides this work. The framework identifies goals and priority communities to be served by bond investments, and our regional housing portfolio includes buildings with different mixes of unit sizes that are intended to serve different household sizes and configurations. Many units are also designated to serve priority communities. As required by Metro and local partners, project plans reflect strong commitments to affirmative marketing, low barrier screening, and prioritize referrals to ensure projects are reaching the priority communities established in the measure. The majority of bond-funded projects report partnerships with culturally specific or responsive organizations who provide resident services, case management, or wraparound services. 691 units across the bond portfolio are designated as permanent supportive housing units intended for people exiting long-term homelessness. This is a strategy that pairs a housing unit with long-term rent assistance and ongoing social and health services, and is a national best practice for those exiting chronic homelessness. Many of these units are leveraging funding services and rent assistance from Metro's Regional Supportive Housing Services Fund. Next slide, please. Here you see Helen, a resident at Fuller Station. Fuller Station was the second Metro bond-funded apartment community to open in Clackamas County. The building's 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments are designated for a mix of household incomes ranging from 30% AMI to 80% AMI. All apartments can be converted for ADA accessibility, and Metro bond funds contributed $8.5 million of the development's $47.3 million budget. Helen attended high school in Portland and later spent many years out of state. She always knew she wanted to return to the metro area, and when she did, she was surprised by the high rents and struggled to find a home. She initially lived in another affordable housing development here in Clackamas County, but when she decided to become a foster parent, she realized that she needed more space. She then learned about Fuller Station from her property management company. Fuller Station had just been opened and was under the same management company. With their help, Helen was able to move into a 2-bedroom on the ground floor of Fuller Station just in time for the state's home inspection to approve her foster parent application. She now cares for a teen with developmental disabilities. Next slide, please. Let's get into some of our progress to goals and some of those details. This graph shows you the number of total units in the pipeline, how many are open and under construction. Our pipeline now exceeds all 3 production goals established by the program, with remaining funds left to be awarded. The pipeline includes more than 1,600 deeply affordable units at 30% AMI. Nearly 700 of these units will be permanent supportive housing, targeting households exiting homelessness who need long-term support to achieve housing stability. Next slide, please. But we will go even further. This graph shows the total number of affordable units that are forecasted through the bond. We're now on track to exceed our goal by at least 20%, thanks to the careful stewardship of our partners in state and local coordination to respond to shifting financial landscapes. We estimate that these investments will collectively provide housing for 9,000 to 15,000 people at any given time. Each affordable home also has a lifespan of 60 to 99 years, which helps to ensure housing for tens of thousands of individuals and families for generations to come. Next slide, please. Plans are in place that will commit all remaining bond funds by 2024, with final projects expected to break ground in 2026. But there is still great need. This slide shows the anticipated timeline for disbursement of remaining funds and completion of remaining units. In 23, 24, and 25, annual disbursements are expected in the range of $130 to $135 million. The final disbursement of approximately $23 million is expected in 2026. Some funding that was originally expected to be dispersed in 2024 will be delayed until 2025 due to private activity bond constraints. Projects typically take 39 to 47 months from solicitation and pre-development through construction and lease-up. So all remaining units are expected to be complete by 2028. Next slide, please. Providing good use of public funds is a core guiding principle of the Affordable Housing Bond and for Metro and its county partners. The current Affordable Housing Bond portfolio represents $2.2 billion in investments, of which 23.1% or $513 million is affordable housing bond funding, and over $1 billion or 77% is leveraged from other sources. 3,203 construction-related jobs alone through this work. Just one aspect of this program, just one aspect of the impact of this program. We also work with many property managers, service partners, and while we don't have numbers at this time, the impact of this work has spurred jobs and economic activity throughout the region across many industries. Through the life of the Metro Housing Bond, Metro and our jurisdictional partners across the region have partnered with a range of organizations, including 17 culturally specific organizations, 25 housing developers, 37 service partners, 10 general contractors, and 15 property managers. For our first 9 projects to reach completion, 17% of construction contracts were paid to COVID-certified MWESB firms. This snapshot will continue to change. This represents the first 9 projects to reach completion and submit contracting outcomes to Metro. And this is just a subset of the 41 that are total in the pipeline. Next slide, please. To ensure access to the opportunities provided by bond investments, the bond program aims to direct construction contracts to underrepresented firms. The bond's development projects are on track to meet or exceed the regional goal of at least 20% construction contract funding going to COVID-certified, minority or women-owned or emerging small businesses. Program staff have confirmed that we are tracking at over 30% for total hard costs. In the first pie chart, we see minority business enterprise at 30%, women businesses enterprise at 39%, emerging small businesses at 27%, with 4% not being classified. And in the second chart, we see a demographic breakdown of 52% owned by Latino Hispanic, 21% Black African American, 17% Asian Pacific, and 10% unknown. Next slide, please. So we'll conclude our presentation for today. We really appreciate your time and your partnership, and we'll open for questions.
Thank you very much, Patricia and Councilor Lewis. I have one question. I imagine the rest of the commissioners might have questions as well. If you do, please use the raised hand feature and then I can look at you. On page, I believe it's 9, 77% of this Metro bond is leveraged. That does not necessarily mean debt, although some of it is debt, because as we pull in monies from other spots, you know, this grant, or a tax credit. Do you know the amount of debt on the $2.2 billion investment?
I don't offhand. I do have Emily Lieb, our Director of Policy here at Metro, on standby. We could put her on, bring her on to see if she knows the answer. Otherwise, I'd be happy to bring you that answer after this conversation.
And if Emily can't answer it, that's okay. You could just email it to us, whoever your contact is, and that'll be fine. I see Emily has, there you are, Emily. Would you like to unmute yourself and comment?
Good morning, commissioners. Emily Lieb, I'm our Housing Policy Director at Metro. I use she and her pronouns. Yes, if you want to pull back up that pie chart, well, I can. It does break down the specific categories. So 20% of our total funding is leveraged from long-term loans from lenders and investors.
Okay, and that amount, so that's 400. Little over $400 million is in loans. Is my math correct on that or not?
That sounds right, because we're at 2.2 billion. Yeah. And, you know, and we still have additional funding to be awarded. So that's not a final number, but that's where we're at today.
And then how is that debt serviced? Who pays that debt?
So that debt is paid off over, it's a long-term mortgage that is paid off by the long-term owner of the property. Many of these properties are owned by a partnership entity. And so part of, you know, in a market rate project, you might have a bigger loan because you have higher rents and you're gathering that income over time and paying off that debt. For an affordable housing project, that's a smaller portion of our portfolio, but the income from, you know, the rents in the building are paying off that that mortgage over time.
Thank you. So the people who are coming in to live in these units, whether we call it supported housing or affordable housing or just plain low income housing, they do pay based on their ability to pay or a specialized program that they're in. They're paying rent, and therefore the rents go to service the building, the debt, the maintenance, upkeep. I assume these are tax-free units. Is that correct? So the point I'm trying to make is, in order to service the debt on these units, there is another pipeline of income coming through various sources like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, SHS dollars. I don't know. Can SHS dollars be used to pay for rent on these? I think, Christine Lewis, that is the budding question.
Yes, the voucher system that has been established through the Supportive Housing Services measure, those vouchers are used in order to help pay rents, both at bond developed affordable housing and also more broadly at affordable housing owned by nonprofits and for-profit property owners across the region. So the voucher system, we think, is a real success.
I do too. I think vouchers for rent is just great, and rent assistance across the board. We have two commissioners who would like to speak. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good morning, Councilor Lewis and Patricia Rojas, Emily Lieb. Thank you for this briefing. It's very positive, very much appreciated. Certainly, we have a profound need for housing to assist those who find themselves in a position in our state where they simply just can't afford it by themselves. The future, when it comes to funding for the kind of projects you're talking about, you know, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know if we're going to have a future that has things like the housing bond or the Supportive Housing Services measure. So the other option that we need to work on, and I encourage everyone to look at the governor's current efforts to examine what we need statewide in the way of housing. She estimates some 500,000 units needed probably in the next decade. But as you look at the 2024 Urban Growth Boundary Review, I would encourage you to err on the side of expansion to give our cities and the Metro Urban Growth Boundary a little bit more freedom to expand. And also, you know, I've encouraged some of our legislators to look at the Senate Bill 100 from 1973 to see how we might be able to ease up the tight urban growth boundaries to attract free market construction. And I would say it's a big lift, and it's difficult, but it's really difficult when we look at the relatively small availability of land in many of our cities. So again, thank you again for your work in affordable housing, but please let's not take our eye off the issue of attracting free market housing also. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner Scholl.
Am I allowed to respond just for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
Commissioner, thank you so much for those comments. And I do think that the reason that Metro was able to step up and be agile and meet the community need for deeply affordable housing with the 2018 measure is because of our long history talking about housing through the land use process. If it weren't for that hook and that natural connection, Metro, I think, would have had more struggles flexing into this space. What's really important is that as we are considering bringing additional lands into urban area, is that we're working with communities to plan for all levels of affordability.
Yeah.
We need communities that have all types of housing and all levels of affordability. And it's really important to understand that if we're going to have units that are readily available at the 0 to 30 median % income, it's going to be because of government and nonprofits. The free market just can't develop new product at the 0 to 30 level. You see places that have no land constraints, like Dallas, Texas, who are considering using public bonds for those deep levels of affordability, because you just don't get new units unless you get that level of bond or other government and nonprofit partnership, because 0 to 30 is so hard to build for.
Understood. Well,
Thank you for that.
Thank you
We're
very
going to try
much.
to move on. We are on a deadline at 10:30 to start the next policy session. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have some good news coming from our collective governments, if you will, and working together on this. So I appreciate the partnership and again the successes. A lot of our citizens, who reach out to me, for example, and probably yourselves, there is some confusion as to what this bond, the housing bond, is, and what the supportive housing services bond. And I appreciate the discussion earlier, which relates to debt, who's carrying the debt in the long run, which is the private sector in this regard. It is important to know that the rents that contribute to meeting the debt, that private sector debt, are important to be paid. And we have to look at the entire system, if you will, and that is jobs and how we can promote jobs that are paying family wages and so forth, so people can elevate themselves into prosperity, out from poverty to prosperity. So it's a complicated picture, and I am concerned more so about the supportive housing services elements, in that if the voters do not renew this in years to come, that it will affect again the ability for people to pay the rents, and also to meet the needs out there today for the homeless, the people that are suffering houselessness and so forth, and all the other services that go along with that under that supportive housing services bond. So I think progress is really important. And of course, people know what they read, they know what they see on TV, and they know what they see driving down our roads and freeways and so forth. So there still is a visual housing crisis, and of course, a real housing crisis. We know that. So, Counselor, just want to ask you what do you see in the works with regards to, meeting at least, I think, the intent of the supportive housing services measure, and any adjustments that might assist in making a deeper impact going forward, so we can be more successful.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question and pretty timely. Metro is interested in pulling together a stakeholder table that will include representation of all 3 counties and the opportunity to talk about the supportive housing services measure, not only as a project that is finding success in revenue collection, because as you know, we have over $100 million of unanticipated revenues, because the folks who are doing well in this economy are doing better than we could have modeled for 4 years ago. So I do think that stakeholder table will be important to watch, not only because we will be talking about the potential to continue to invest in affordable housing using the unanticipated revenues, but I think it is a place where we're really going to bring to bear what is working in supportive housing services, because we do have success on an individual level, but we are still struggling to bring it up to scale. And we need to have measurable results that are not just we're solving unsheltered homelessness in 10 years, but we need to have midway checkpoints where we know if a program is working or not. So I do think that the stakeholder table is a place to watch.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your response. I think it's important to note that, each of the counties have their own unique diversified areas, needs, whatnot. And I think what's working for us is having that ability to adjust, if you will, county by county, area within the counties, so forth. So our needs are unique. And I know that Commissioner Schrader, all of us on the commission are also trying to recognize how we support and help the areas outside of the metro area that don't receive this kind of funding and benefit. So we're mindful of the 200,000 people that live in the rural areas outside the metro boundaries. Again, my point of raising what I raised earlier with regards to jobs and prosperity, and I heard Texas being used as an example, a huge economic engine, But we have a lot more constraints on businesses, and I just want to be mindful that, we think as a region, how we retain employers and encourage them to, hire more and grow. And I know that's a challenge for a conversation for a different day, but it does affect on the land use thing and on the transportation world. Those two worlds, there's a lot of commonalities. But I think we need to be mindful of that bigger economic engine to make sure that, again, the jobs are there to, number one, support the state and also support the work we're doing. So thank you. That's just a comment.
Thank you. As we move forward in establishing the stakeholder table, I would assume key elected leaders from each county would be present at that stakeholder table.
Yes.
Yes, see no other comments for commissioners. Do anybody else would like to say anything else in conclusion? Thank you very much, Patricia Rojas and Councilor Christine Lewis. This is a very good presentation and quite successful, and we're very much appreciative.
And Emily Lieb, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Be safe, be warm. Goodbye. Gary, what's next?
All right, the next policy session is County Ambulance Services Contract with AMR Northwest. For this one, Chair, would you please convene as the Board of Public Health for Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Board of Public Health.
So you'll be sitting as the Board of Public Health for this discussion. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Philip Mason Joyner, the county's Public Health Division Director, will be the main presenters. So Rod, go ahead, please. Our Commissioner Savas has his hand raised. Chair Smith.
Chair, one thing I think is important to mention on the onset, I'm going to want to declare a potential conflict of interest. Not last year, but in late 2022, I received a campaign contribution from AMR. I don't believe that it has a direct conflict, so that's why I'm declaring a potential conflict of interest. We did not have, at that time that I received that, I was obviously running for re-election. There was not any issue with performance from AMR. There weren't any of those challenges. There was not contract negotiations that were actively underway at the commissioner level. So I don't see it as a problem, but I think it's fair to at least put it on the table. And I would encourage, ourselves to be mindful of that. So,
Commissioner Savas, thank you. Commissioners, I'm going to have you all hold your comments until we have the presentation. Martha, I see your hand is up. Would you please want to wait for your comment until we have a presentation, or is it absolutely essential at this point? Who's up first?
All right,
Philip?
so Rod Cook, would you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rod Cook, Health, Housing, Human Services Director, and I have with me today Philip Mason Joyner. He is the Public Health Director. We're here before you today to talk about the AMR contract. We have two things we're trying to hear from the board.
We're frozen.
Get approval on. Am I frozen?
No, you're good, Rod.
Okay.
You're fine, Rod. Go ahead.
Okay, continue. Okay. So the two items are to review the current contract compliance issues for ambulance services with American Medical Response Northwest. It'll probably be referred to as AMR Northwest as we go through this presentation. And secondly, to seek Board of County Commissioner direction on next steps related to liquidated damages in the current contract, which expires on April 30, 2024. And I'm going to hand it over to Philip Mason Joyner. He's our Public Health Director. He has detailed information for you for the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to pause, please. Chair Smith has lost her internet connection. Oh, there she is. She's going to reboot. Chair Smith, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry about that. Don't know what happened.
Okay, so haven't started yet. Rod just introduced Philip. So Philip, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Yes, as Rod mentioned, Clackamas County contracts with American Medical Response Northwest AMR for ambulance services. We're currently in the 10th and final year of the existing contract between AMR and Clackamas County. I'm just going to provide a very high-level overview of the current situation, just for context, especially for EMS stakeholders who I'm sure are watching, and for the general public, as this is at times fairly a technical topic. But the highlights: since May of 2022, AMR, they've struggled to meet their contract requirements, specifically related to the timeliness of having ambulances arrive on scene for medical 911 calls in the county. This is primarily due to workforce challenges and shortages that they are facing. This is an issue that not only is being faced in Clackamas County, it's happening across the Portland metro region, and it's a national issue that the field of EMS and paramedics and ambulance companies in general are faced with right now. When we last discussed this issue publicly at a policy session in 2023, county staff shared with the Board of County Commissioners that AMR had accrued $456,000 in what we call in the contract liquidated damages. Those are essentially fines. The board made the decision to waive the fines and direct AMR to spend half of that money on implementation of a performance improvement plan and offering scholarships to recruit individuals to become paramedics that would serve in Clackamas County. AMR actually last year in 2023 spent over $500,000 in scholarships for Clackamas County to recruit folks to go through paramedic school. They are confident that in the next year or two they will be more fully staffed, and that these response times issues will be resolved. That looks like that is what they are predicting nationally as well. So this is a tough time period right now, and it's challenging, of course, for Clackamas County as they're faced with these contract compliance concerns right when our existing contract is expiring. So in addition to the scholarships, AMR has been implementing their performance improvement plan. I did want to share for the public that AMR actually did agree to subcontract with Metro West Ambulance Company so that they could help out. The challenges around the workforce impacts other companies just like Metro West Ambulance. This is a 24/7 operation, and night shifts are the biggest concern. Metro West is only able to help during the days, where AMR is pretty well staffed during the days. So the nighttime shifts are the biggest impact on why AMR isn't able to meet their contract compliance currently. This current contract year, which goes from May 1st to April of 2023 to April 30th of 2024, AMR staffing hasn't improved. They have since December accumulated an additional $840,000 in those fines. In terms of their staffing, AMR needs 48 paramedics to be fully staffed. Right now, they have 38 providing services in Clackamas County. EMTs are less of a concern. The past couple of years, they've needed 42 EMTs to be fully staffed, and they're usually right at that number. And they do have, of course, some attrition, but they're able to fill those positions really quickly. So we're here today, as Rod mentioned, to receive the board's direction on next steps related to the contract, which expires on May 1st, 2024 at midnight, and what the board would like to do about the $840,000 in liquidated damages that have been accumulated to date. We do provide some options for the board to consider to help the discussion get started. And then we have recommendations, which are broken down by the two distinct issues, one related to the contract that it's expiring May 1st, and the other related to the fines. So with that, I can hand it back to Chair Smith, or I do see Commissioner Salvis's hand is up.
I'll be running the meeting. Thank you very much. I'm having major internet problems. So I only heard part of this presentation, but you don't have to redo it because I think I'm familiar enough with this. I texted Gary, my message failed to get to you, and I tried calling, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and do this. Commissioner, first, before commissioners were in order, Commissioner Schrader, you had your hand up, and then Commissioner Savis.
Thank you. I just wanted to, with Commissioner Savis, again, hopefully this is not a conflict of interest, but I have received donations from AMR in the past for elective office. So I just wanted to get that out there as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank
I
you.
have has received contributions from
Yeah.
AMR in the past as well. Commissioner West, your hand is up.
Yeah, just for full transparency, I don't know how this plays into it, but I have also received campaign donations from AMR. Don't think it creates a conflict, but it may have a perceived one. But just for the public record, I've also received donations from AMR.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we're talking about this today and having the experience of the negotiations about a decade ago with AMR when this went out to bid. You know, most of our discussions and packets were pretty hefty public session. Very little of it was executive session. And so I appreciate getting this a start here. And I did request that we bring this out to public session. I had no time requirement. I just want to qualify that. So I was not in any rush, knowing that there's a lot of work to put together a packet. So I don't know how or why the rush to put this together so quickly. But I do appreciate Philip and Rod, you know, your work, staff work that you've done in preparation today. So don't take this as a criticism, but there's not much in the packet to help me ascertain of all these options. There's not pros and cons. I know we discussed some of this in executive session, but I'm gonna have a lot of questions here today, and I hopefully we have the time and the freedom to actually deliberate and be thoughtful about this. So back here a while ago, you know, one of the metrics that was guiding contractually as well, two of the metrics, one metric being response times, Philip and Rod, and the other one being as it relates to the fines and the efforts about getting AMR fully staffed. My recollection is we were looking at the metrics of AMR staffing. That's kind of contained in the packet a little bit there. They were at a number, and I think we actually lost ground and during this journey we've had here with the staffing. So my concern is, and again, I hold AMR and especially all the people that work there, the boots on the ground, I hold them in high regard. So I know this is not any deliberate, this is really a market issue. This is an employment issue. This is just a lack of workforce out there. So this is not any way a criticism. But I am really wondering whether or not we talk about renewing the contract. I really think that the contract needs to be there's some ambiguity in there that needs to be resolved. We discussed that as well. But I think we need some teeth in any kind of a renewal to get at this particular issue. And I'd like to be creative and working cooperatively and collaboratively with everyone, but make sure that, you know, we're not just giving them a pass, right? You know, that we're keeping the pressure on, and we got valid metrics to gauge all this. So there's a staffing metric, there's the response time metrics, there's perhaps investments that can be made, like, you know, like in one of the options with the forgot the name of it, but the one with the nurse response method there. But I also want to talk about, is it possible to take part of that $840,000 that we currently sit at and perhaps apply that to hiring bonuses? So I'd like to explore all of that, but before I can even get close to any contract renewal, I just think we need to clear up ambiguities in the existing contract and consider not maybe a year, maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months, but maybe there's a stair stepping in that if progress is being made, then perhaps we look at a longer one. But I think we need better flexibility, not just a simple renewal. There's just not enough teeth here, I think, and incentives, I think, to make up the difference, knowing that AMR's geographic territory and contractual territory is expanded with the addition of Washington County. So that's just adds another level of pressure. A lot said there, but Can you give me, Philip, at least one question in there that's not rhetorical, and that is the question I have with regards to the staffing levels. Have we made any positive increases, or are we seeing a slight decline still?
It's for the last probably quarter, last 3 or 4 months, it's remained the same, around 10 vacant paramedics. And one of the challenges is they'll bring on 1 or 2 new folks, and then someone ends up retiring or leaves the field or leaves for a new opportunity. So it's remained pretty steady around 10 vacancies.
Thank you.
Okay, I want points of clarification. It's very important that I believe we take on this topic now. I've been wanting to bring this forward. I think the opportunity is now. We have medical needs in the community, low response times, and we have an idea how to work on that. We are not asking for a renewal, commissioners. We are not renewing the contract. We are asking just for a 1-year extension while we continue to work on the new contract language and go into a bargaining session, a negotiation, of which I think we have some new ideas that staff has come up with. The situation with AMR is a region-wide crisis, and I have been working with the chairs of the other 2 counties to try to fix it. And by the way, Clark County, Washington as well. During our District 8 meeting this early fall, I convened a meeting with the tri-chairs and the representatives from AMR representing all 3 counties and Randy Lauer to work on this problem. I asked Multnomah County, because you're using a 2 paramedic model, if you would consider not using a 2 paramedic model, since you're the only county in AMR's system to be using a 2 paramedic model, and then that would help the other counties. Chair Jessica Vega Peterson, we said, think about it. She went back. They decided not to do that. With the addition of Washington County secured the AMR contract over Metro West in the end of August, I believe, around there, has also put a strain on the paramedic situation with AMR. So not only is Clackamas County competing with Multnomah County, we always had the addition of Washington County and then also Clark County. The outcome of that meeting was I asked AMR if you would bring in Metro West, who used to supply the contract to Washington County, to provide additional ambulance services to help during this time of paramedic shortage, because Metro West does have paramedics. Metro West does have ambulances in Clackamas County right now. They do transports between hospitals and some other things, although they are not the prime ambulance provider. Randy Lauer said he would do that. That was very many months ago. Philip, remember, I don't remember the exact dates on this. It was slow getting the contract put together. We do have 1 ambulance. My understanding is from Metro West offering services in Clackamas County. However, what's at issue here is the evening shift. Nobody seems to want to work the evening shift. And if I can say anything to AMR suppliers, ambulance people, and Metro West, I don't think you're working very well in the sandbox on providing assistance to the night shift. I think you're both being very stubborn. I don't like it. And I'm speaking to leadership right now, to these 2 companies. It would behoove you both to work on providing ambulance services to our level 1 priorities, our greatest medical needs during the evening shift. I don't buy the fact that you can't find anybody to work out there. That's just not doing. It just doesn't make sense to me. Yes, these needs are real. Clackamas County also was the first to not implement the fines against AMR. We recognize that the workforce shortage was tremendous. We recognize it would not be solved overnight. So instead of fining the entire amount in, I believe, this summer, we said we would take half that fine, AMR, and would you please do scholarships to bring people in? And they are, and they have done that through the trainings and other trainings available across their system, but it takes 2 years to train a paramedic. If they're an EMT, training as a paramedic, the time is slower, but they still have to have training, and then they need to have a ride along. So from the county's point of view, I think that we're doing well on trying to help. I also offered up the nurse navigation system to help triage calls that come in. And what that means is somebody calls for an ambulance. There's a nurse on the other end who talks with the person and figures out exactly what is wrong. And do you need an ambulance, or can we do something else for you? Do you have somebody available to take you, for instance, to urgent care? Or can you make an appointment with your doctor at a later date? Is it really necessary to have the ambulance there? Now, these are trained medical professionals. They're not county staff people. And the nurse navigation system is used successfully in other jurisdictions. I do believe that, commissioners, we need to consider implementing that as fast as we can. AMR needs to come along and do that, because we have to answer these medical needs. For the company to say, oh, we can't afford it, doesn't really cut it, because they are in breach of contract. They are almost assessed $1 million in fines. I would submit to the company, work with us on this. That's all we're asking. It's going to cost some money to implement it, but going forward, I think it's going to help the company a lot on this. So the two options listed in the staff report today, commissioners, are just, they're just moving the ball down the court. One is to extend the contract. We are not renewing the contract. It's just extension of the new contract, and to implement the nurse navigation system. We also assume they're using scholarships to train more paramedics to come in and do this. We have a couple commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank AMR for your expenditures of $500,000 to help encourage our people to join the EMR profession. And I'd also like to thank the AMR employees that are listening today. I know you have a hard job. This is a difficult situation we have, but I thank you for hanging on and working with us on this problem. I'm hoping that should we have an extension for 12 months, that by April of 2025, we're starting to see the return on your investment in educating new EMRs. I do encourage a 12-month extension, and I'm hoping AMR is going to be agreeable to that. And I would like to see in the extension documents some commitment, some requirement for using some of that $840K for bonuses, and also some of it for nurse navigation. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas, and then Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I tend to use the word renew and extend interchangeably, and technically I understand it as extend. So all my comments where I reference renewal was meant to be, in this context, an extension. But so I just want to just make that perfectly clear. They're not much different, but I don't think extending it as is okay at this point. To the issue, to my earlier question about the metrics as it relates to the staffing levels, when we waived the first level of fines early on, we actually, at the end of that, as I recall, lost AMR had less staffing. So not that it was deliberate, but it was happenstance. So it didn't result in it positively, in the sense that waiving the fine resulted in more EMTs or staffing levels at AMR. So that's a concern. It's no secret that this is there's a lot of visibility on this in the other counties. It's got a lot of media coverage. But at the end of the day, the reason that we franchise this, the reason that we're involved in this in the private sector, is we want to ensure that all areas of the county, all citizens get the coverage that when they call 911 and they have a medical emergency, that we are there or they are there to help, and they are meeting those response times. And that's the concern here. This is really a life and safety issue. I know that we're cognizant of that. I know that AMR is cognizant of that. I know they're dedicated to that. But I think publicly, people need to know what's driving this, and what's driving all is really those response times, and making sure that, again, people that are in need, seconds matter, and delays or lack of staffing at the end of the day, whether it's night or day, could result in someone not being with us tomorrow, not coming home. So that said, I want to discuss further, Philip, Rod, you know, what we know we got some ambiguities in the contract today, and I don't want to carry that into an extension. We have options that are shorter than a year. I think we need to look at that. I just want to see some creative ways that, number one, offer some ideas, some incentives, but also offer the metrics to help guide us in the next 12 months, if that's the case, if that's what we do, or 6 months, to make sure we can make adjustments. And that's why I think some fresh ideas and so forth are integrated into however we move forward with this. Again, I brought up the idea of a signing bonus. I'm hoping that might have some bearing, and maybe the fines that we've imposed those dollars can be used there for that. I don't know. The nurse navigation, I support that. I support whatever it takes, but I'd be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge all the great work that our paramedics, our fire departments, our police and sheriff's departments are all doing to help in this matter. It's been exacerbated by fentanyl crisis, the drug abuse issues, the homelessness. These all exacerbated the need. So we are in, you know, a unique time. 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when we had our first AMR renewal, we didn't have these issues. But I just want to say that all of our first responders, even the nonprofits out there that are helping, we've got some issues that are just never been as bad as they are. And I know that weighs in on all of this. That I know that's part of the reason that we are where we are today. So that said, I want to see some innovation, and I'd like to come back at, you know, the soon as possible. Again, with emphasis on quality of the work packet, and quality on options, and quality on pros and cons on these decisions we make. Come back with some ideas on how we structure any kind of an extension.
Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Well, I'm just going to be pragmatic here, and I think that a 1-year extension is a good idea, because I think we have to have continuity of service. So that's number one. Number two, I really like the notion of a nurse navigation system. To me, that is innovative, and it will take some of the strain off of the system as it is now. And what we really are dealing with is a system-wide, national-wide dearth of workforce in this particular field. So I also mentioned that I will be going to the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board and talking to them. Sorry, I just blipped out for a minute. Talking to them about what their role could be in terms of increasing a pipeline for trained paramedics and plane emergency management technicians. So there's that piece of it. In the meantime, my question to staff is, don't we have an emergency medical board, do we not, that works on these issues? It is a coalition of folks from AMR, our fire departments, and our sheriff's department. Have they weighed in any way with any recommendations for the issues that we're facing right now?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner Schrader. Yes, we have a very active Emergency Medical Services EMS Council at the county. It's a board-appointed advisory council. They have been briefed and engaged all along. We have not specifically asked for them to take an official position or vote on issues related to the extension or to the contract or to the liquidated damages. We haven't specifically asked them to make an official recommendation on that for the board.
No, and I wasn't looking for that specifically, but if they're there to help run a system. Have we asked them specifically what they could do to help the system be a better system? Is it nurse involvement? Is it the nurse triage piece? Is it, our job is to make a decision. Do we extend it and work through this with them? That's not their job. That's not what I'm asking for. But has there been a discussion with them at all that has to do with the challenges the system is having right now, and how active have they been involved in looking at that as a whole and helping us with this bottleneck of workforce? That would be the question that I would ask them and talk to them about. But as far as the extension goes, I'm fine with this at that time, and I think staff can continue to work and come up with something that is, as Commissioner Savas says, that has some sidebars and is still innovative. So I'm willing to move with an extension, at least for the time being.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Two more commissioners, Commissioner West and then Commissioner Scholl.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff, for your presentation today. I really appreciate it. I know we've had a lot of conversations around this. I remember a little bit early on as a newer commissioner, I popped into the chair's office and I remember popping up and saying, why does our county have a nurse triage system, and why don't we, if we don't have a nurse triage system? It really is a best practice. There really is a lot of evidence that it provides better patient outcomes for individuals that find themselves in need of calling 911. What it does is every call is treated with the same urgency and professionalism as any emergency. But what it does is it allows a nurse with a greater scope of practice to really dive into a specific issue that a patient is having, and to help navigate them to the best access and most appropriate access of care. And there's places throughout the entire county. I'm sure even NACO has examples about where this has been successful and how counties have intersected with this. But it allows us maybe to set up a patient with a telehealth call with a provider or with a nurse practitioner or with somebody, instead of going to the emergency room or taking the resources of a paramedic that needs to be at a different call that is more urgent, that needs that level of care on site. It allows us just to be that much more tailored to the patient's experience and to the client's experience at the time of need that they have. So I would really like to see us implement some type of nursing triage program. I don't know if it's going to be the silver bullet that fixes everything. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I do think there's ample evidence that Multnomah County really is hoarding the workforce in a way that I don't know is evidence-based as a nursing triage center. I don't know if you need 2 paramedics on every single call. I think that that's a misuse of resources. I do think that they have higher acuity and more calls in Multnomah County, largely due to the chaos that is kind of rampant there, and the criminality and the lawlessness and the kind of the human despair that's found on many of the street corners in that community. And that's unfortunate, and that does impact us since we neighbor them and share a 10-mile border with them. I think that we should also talk about how we can help find creative solutions in the long run through the legislature, and making it maybe a legislative priority to get resources to manage this workforce piece that has impacts due to Measure 110. It has impacts due to criminality and lawlessness in the region. All of these different chronic issues, this is a symptom of that. I firmly believe that. I think there's some creative legislative ideas maybe we can talk about to maybe help get some support from the legislature to make this a priority. Maybe it's around licensure, making it easy to get paramedics licensed, fast tracking their education process, streamlining that process, not becoming burdensome in the ability to get people off the ground educated and moving into this field since we need them. The field pays quite well. It's a little bit shocking to me that we're having a hard time finding paramedics. I reached out to Randy last weekend, and I was talking to a number of the corpsmen in the Navy who aren't quite paramedics and they're not quite EMTs, are kind of in limbo somewhere in between. And I said, Randy, like, what are we offering here? What's out the gate? And I guess they just provided increased pay and compensation, but we're talking about, they start just over $73,000 a year as a new paramedic. That can be less than a 2-year education to make $73,000 a year annually, and then they top out about $115,000. And a basic EMT, even an EMT, starts at $49,300. And they just increased their pay by 5% January 1st here. So there are some and they have good benefits and opportunities. So there are opportunities. I think that we got to be creative about finding where that workforce is. I don't know if NACO has some ideas about what other counties have done across the country. I don't know about this 1-year extension. Part of me feels like we aren't talking enough about going out for bid. But I don't know if we even have another provider that could apply that has the resources to take on the contract and to not have the same problems. I don't know if I have enough information to move forward here. I don't know. It's complicated. I don't know how I'm going to vote. If we're going to take a vote on this day, I legit don't know where I'm falling on the fines and how that's happening. I kind of am fine with the fines as long as we have a nurse navigation set up, but I don't know if this is just going to get better and we're kicking the can either. I don't know if this what the right answer here is. What's the mix is like getting it fixed while also being accountable. But I don't know, colleagues. I'll leave it at that. I'm still perplexed with the situation, and I think some of it is outside of our control, and then some of it's outside of AMR's control. I think a lot of this is bad policy. I think a lot of this is chaos in the Portland area, creeping into Clackamas County. That's a fact, and it's causing strain on resources and our ability to respond to emergencies.
Thank you. Commissioner Schull, you're up.
Yes, I firmly support a 12-month extension with extension language to include a requirement for an attractive sign-on bonus with a required fixed minimum period of those sign-ons, and also a requirement in the language to utilize the nurse navigation idea. I think that AMR is conscientious in its efforts to improve response time in a very difficult operational environment. I don't see right now an attractive alternative to AMR. And so it's going to take time. Their investment in scholarships and in training will take time. And so again, I encourage a 12-month extension. Thank you.
And I have my hand up. I concur.
I know you do. I'm coming back, Commissioner Schrader.
Right.
We all just need to be patient and maybe take a few more seconds than we normally would because of the connections. Go ahead, Commissioner Schrader.
Oh, thank you. I concur with Commissioner Schull at this point, and then I strongly suggest we have conversations, as I said, the workforce board, the community college, and I think that we need to have conversations with our EMS system folks, not on contractual issues, but what are some of their solutions for a systems change? That would make sense to me. And, work with them so we have them on board and we build goodwill. But we have to think about this as a system with AMR, our fire departments, and all the other folks involved in public safety and health safety.
I am in concurrence with the two other commissioners, Schull and Schrader, on our recommendations today. Commissioner Savas, you have your hands up.
Yeah, I want to, at least from my perspective, I would, happily entertain an extension condition upon some of the comments that I've heard and some of the comments and ideas that I've conveyed. I also think even again, just to highlight that we've discovered that there's some ambiguities in the contract language that need to be remedied with our legal staff. There needs to be, in my opinion, there needs to be some metrics, outcomes that we have a check in. I mean, let's just say in 3 months, let's say hypothetically we extend the contract, and in 3 months in, things are getting worse. I think we need to have the flexibility to keep all options open. And that if there is a major degradation or something not working very well, that we don't just kick this can for another year. But I think it needs to have some kind of a cancellation or termination clause if performance hits a certain point. We need teeth in this contract. I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not interested in extending the contract as is.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas.
It needs to have those amendments made.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas, for your opinion on that. I'm going to call on Philip and Gary. Are the attorneys on listening and online? We discussed what it means to go into a lame duck provision. I would like their comments on that, and we can take our time to do that. But Philip, tell me today, what would happen if the board decided to extend the contract? What happens with AMR's part in this? It's just not automatic, correct?
Correct, Chair. Anytime we extend or amend the contract, it does involve us. It's essentially a negotiation. Certainly anything that has financial implications, additional financial implications that are added as an amendment, that will be heavily negotiated given the current circumstances. AMR locally will have to go to their parent company, engage their corporate lawyers. So that's just part of the process, which is why I am hoping that we can get board direction on these options, and if you'd like to move forward with county staff recommendations or not. But May 1st at midnight of this year, we'll be here really in a blink of an eye in order for us to, with our county council and AMR's folks, it will take time to even get a standard extension in place.
Thank you very much. Gary, your hand is up.
Yes, Assistant County Counsel Andrew Naylor is in the room. And Andrew, if you could turn your camera on, please. There he is.
Thanks, Andrew. We've had discussions about what would happen if we did not put out an extension on this. And could you give us your opinion, please?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. If we did not renew the contract, we would have to immediately start a new solicitation for a new ambulance provider. During that period of time, assuming it's not AMR who again wins the solicitation, which is entirely possible given the limited number of options out there, there's what's called a lame duck period where AMR has to continue to provide services during the transition period. So the period between when a new provider is selected and they're up to speed and able to take over operations, AMR can't stop services. So there's continuity of services for Clackamas County. And the period is several months. It's not particularly clear how long that can extend, but the intent is that there's not going to be any discontinuing of services. Hopefully that answers the question, but if not, let me know.
Well, I think it does. I think the public needs to know that too, that we do need to continue ambulance services to the people in Clackamas County who, when they pick up the phone and dial 911, it is their expectation that they will receive help. And that's what we do here in Clackamas County. This is a very difficult situation we find ourselves in with very few remedies right now, but we must continue to provide service. Going into a lame duck situation without a provider, to me, is not being responsible to our people. Also, I would like to see the nurse navigation implemented in this somehow. Now, Philip, if a board passes that today, the nurse navigation along with the 1-year extension, it says ask AMR to do that. So if we ask AMR to do that and they say no, what is our next option?
If we ask AMR and they decide not to do that using a portion of the fine money that's been accumulated, we could impose the fine on AMR, and then the county could purchase that investment directly ourselves and put in place.
So
for
what we're asking on the nurse navigation, and I believe it's fairly clear, we could use part of the fines that are outstanding, because the board has not made a decision on the fines except for to offer scholarships for training, that we take part of that fine and then AMR use part of the fines for nurse navigation. If they refuse to do that, Philip, we can implement a nurse navigation system from our end. Is that correct?
We can purchase it, we can put it in place, but it is dependent on participation and partnership with AMR and able to fully implement it. Just for the public's awareness, the closest other community near us that has put this in place is Clark County in Southwest Washington. They put that in place last year. In the fall, it took about 2 to 3 months for it to be operational. So this takes some back end work to get it set up. But they're already seeing about a 10 to 15% reduction in their call volume, is my understanding, and already feeling like it's a worthwhile investment for them. Still early, of course, but looks very promising.
And how long have they been doing that?
Just since the fall of 2023, it's very recent for them.
Okay, so and then in the packet, if commissioners, you go down to page 3, 3 was the yellow tab that goes across, and it's time compliance. And this is for the public's benefit as well. You go to the month of May and you read across, and priority 1, 1,160 runs. The standard that met for response times in a timely manner was 930, and that means an 80% response time, or 80% of their calls came within the response time according to what was the contract language. Philip, what is that number supposed to be?
The standard for all of these different requirements in urban, suburban, rural, frontier areas is 90% or better in order to meet the requirement. So when you're under 90, then that's when those fines become accumulated.
And in the rural and frontier, they have met the response times in those areas. It's the urban and suburban areas where the response times are low. Now, the contract language, the new contract language going forward, I don't know if there is a tweak in that, or somehow we can do something else to make sure that the ambulance company can meet the response times. We've talked about it a lot today. I do think nurse navigation would help, at least to get that up and running. And 2, we're trying to do our best to train paramedics to come on. Hopefully people will want to come to Clackamas County and be a paramedic. It's hard work. We acknowledge that, but it's really essential work on this. Gary, you have your hand up? Oh, you don't have your hand up. Okay. I will entertain a motion to do the recommendations as outlined in the staff report. Commissioner Scholl.
I move to extend the current contract for ambulance services with AMR Northwest by 1 year, and in that extension language to require part of the accumulated fines from this current contract year of $840,000 to use to provide the GMR access to nurse care navigation program for Clackamas County by May 1st of 2024, and to use part of those fines to for sign-on bonuses, period.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has made a very lengthy motion, I believe, as recommended language, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Further discussion on this. Mark, your hand is still up. Have you finished?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take it down.
All right, Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, on the surface of it, I can support the motion. But again, I want to condition it on some of the other things we talked about. So I'm going to take a leap of faith. And unless Chair, you're in direct opposition, I'm going to take a leap of faith that there's willingness by the board to direct staff to explore some modifications to the contract extension that include perhaps a termination strategy that clear up some of the ambiguities that we've discovered, but basically clean it up. So I just want to condition my support.
Well, Commissioner Savas, is the attorney still, yes, the attorney is still on here. Your recommendations for an addendum are very unclear to me. You have been talking about ambiguity in contract language. I don't know what that is. I would like Philip to weigh in on that. Is that even possible, Philip?
Chair,
Very-
if I
you know
may,
what?
Chair, if I may real quickly, the ambiguity I brought up is not something that I created or found myself. It was something that our attorney shared with us.
Okay, that's fine. I understand that. That's on the last board that did this. I understand that. We're trying to move forward. If we throw so much into the contract extension, we may never get a contract extension. Philip, would you please comment on that?
If it's okay, Chair, actually, I think Andrew Naylor is best equipped to be able to respond to that around the specific items.
Andrew, sorry to put you on the spot, but can we take a stab at that?
Sure, Commissioners. Excuse me. I think as part of any extension, we'll just clarify exactly what happens if the board decides not to renew after the 1-year time frame. So whatever language that may look like, we'd have to work with AMR on that, but that we could certainly add that. That would not be a heavy lift. We'll just make it very clear what the 12-month extension's for, what the conditions are, and then what happens if it's not extended again. So I don't think it'll be a problem, but I don't think without starting the drafting process and negotiation process, I don't have a whole lot of detail to provide at this time, but we can certainly make it clear what happens at the end of that 1-year extension.
Okay, let's hold for a moment. Chair Smith needs to reboot her system. All right, we've been, oh. Are you there? Can you hear us, Chair Smith?
Yeah, I did not hear Andrew's response to that. I'm sorry. Listen, commissioners, I think I'm going to cancel our next policy session today because this is what's happening. As our temperature is warming, ice is falling all over the county, and it's only a matter of time before internet lines could possibly going down or communication lines. That's just what it is. So I beg your pardon. It's very difficult for me to go in and out. Mark, I'm surprised you still have internet as much trouble as you've had.
Well, it's been tough, but we're making it.
We're making it. Philip, I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?
Andrew, could you please repeat what you said?
I mean, Andrew.
No problem. I was saying we can just clarify as part of the 1-year extension what happens if it's not renewed. That's not a heavy lift. We got the substance in terms of the direction. If the board votes yes for Commissioner Shull's motion, we'll clarify as part of the amendment after negotiating with AMR. Again, this is an amendment. It has to be mutual. They have to be on board, so we'll discuss that with them. But any ambiguities about what happens when the extension ends, we can certainly clear that up.
Okay. And also at the same time, we have new contract language. Has that been approved by the Oregon Health Authority?
I
Philip.
Smith, yes. The ambulance service plan, which is the document, I think this really speaks well to Commissioner Schrader's comments about looking at the whole system. Our EMS stakeholders have worked for over 3 years now with a consultant on revitalizing, because the history on this is that a lot of this, the way the system is designed, this was established in 1991 in the county. We pretty much since that time have had every 5 to 10 years the same system, the same vendor of AMR, the same fairly similar contract. There is a lot of work around updating that plan so our county code can be reflective of more current day emergency medical services in the county. There are some adjustments to these response time requirements that will help make a dent and improve some of these challenges that are really based on clinical data of what actually makes sense in terms of patient care, and a new performance-based drafted contract that the board could consider in the future. A lot of exciting work has happened. It's just tough that we're in this current contract compliance time period with the workforce challenges concurrently. But I did want to mention that certainly county staff do not see this as kicking the can, but I do think it, if the board moves forward with this motion and provides that flexibility and opportunity for the workforce challenges to get improved in the system to be able to move forward in a productive fashion. So thank you.
Now, commissioners, just because we're voting to extend this for 1 year, it does not have to last for 1 year. We could come to an agreement on the new contract language, and that could supersede the extension. Is that right,
Andrew?
Andrew?
That's correct.
Okay, so it would behoove us, any changes we want to see, as I believe it can go into the new contract language, and I'm pretty sure staff, we've all been through it. I've been studying this contract for a year, and I've met with all the stakeholders. I've met with even, the people who are providing the service, our workers too, on this. So I think it's important, and we all want to see changes. There's no doubt. We know what we have, it's not working, but I think that we need to go ahead with the extension with that in mind. Tony, I'm going to have you take the vote.
Commissioner Savas,
Conditional, yes.
I couldn't hear that, excuse me.
Conditional, yes.
Okay, there's a yes.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. The vote passes 5-0. Commissioners, thank you very much. I know this was very hard. However, we have to take this one step at a time and go forward and see what we can get done on this. Commissioner Savas, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for I guess legal, which I guess Mr. Naylor, you're the only one here from legal counsel's office. Knowing that even the extension itself is a negotiation, as well as obviously a renewal of the contract is a negotiation. Is it advisable for us to, as commissioners, knowing that this is staff driven, there's a lot of legalities, is it acceptable to have us be in contact with AMR, or do you advise us to stand down?
My recommendation in any negotiation is to speak as one voice on behalf of the county, and that's usually easier to come from one person, typically staff. If there's a lot of different communication, things can become mixed up. My fear would be AMR misconstrues what one commissioner says and thinks that's the position of the county as a whole. So my recommendation is keep it focused, start with the staff level like most contracts, and then we would certainly bring it to the board to discuss. And that way there's no danger of miscommunication.
Yeah, I appreciate your response. I've been very deliberate in not having any discussions with AMR regarding any of this. So thank you.
Philip or Andrew, are we currently in contract negotiation right now? I don't believe we are. I don't think we've submitted a new contract. We're currently.
I do not believe we've reached out to AMR.
We're currently operating on the old contract, and only thing today we're doing is extending the current contract. So commissioners, I don't think any of you, if you've been talking to the folks, are in trouble with that. I certainly will honor our staff's ability to negotiate a contract. I never, ever would want to interfere with their expertise in this area at all. Commissioner Savas, your hand is up.
Yeah, I assume the same goes when we're talking about negotiating the fines, or whether or not we're negotiating fines, that the same would apply. So I look at that more holistically than technically. So it just for appearances and optics, I don't think it's wise when we're talking about levying fines to be in contact with that individual. I like what Mr. Naylor, how Mr. Naylor responded, and I support that approach. Thank you.
Good for you, Commissioner Savas. However, I think this board needs to do what we need to do to get resolution and success on the contract. Seeing no further business before the commission on this particular policy session, this one has ended. Now, Gary, going forward, I am having extreme difficulties. In fact, my county phone is totally out. And I have the same internet service here. I'm going to recommend we take the Measure 110 situation and take it back next week and bring it up as soon as we can, and we adjourn for the day.
Yes, we can reschedule that session to next week, Chair.
Yeah, we'll take time for it. Commissioners, you can take time to figure out language you want to offer in a resolution on Measure 110. Thank you very much. And